As a theist dati, atheism was never really an option. Ang dami ko kasing objections sa atheism. Objections that were very effective in convincing myself na mali talaga ang atheism and that it's no different from other religions. Objections na when I think about them now were actually ill-informed and irrelevant. So if you're the kind of theist who just wants to engage with an atheist, the common mistakes that I'm going to show to you might help para makapag-focus ka sa mga better arguments to prove your claim. Just a reminder, the common mistakes na I'm going to mention in this video are just my observations sa mga theists na I have personally encountered and don't apply to all theists. Mistake number 1. You think atheism is just another religion. Nakasanayan mo kasi na pagduda ka na sa religion mo, one of the usual response is to simply find a better one.
I'll find another.
Hindi mo na-realize na option din naman pala ang not having a religion and being not convinced in the existence of God or gods.
No religion too.
As a theist, you should know by now na hindi religion ang atheism kasi response lang naman ito sa theistic claim. The claim which is, there is a God, at yung response lang naman namin ay, hindi kami convinced na meron. Religion is the belief in and worship of a God or gods. It is a system of designated behaviors, practices, morals, and worldviews that relates humanity to God or gods. These definitions have nothing to do with atheism, kaya please, wag mo na itong i-bring up before pa maging toxic yung usapan. Mistake number 2. You think we use the same definition of faith. You often hear us say na we find faith to be an unreliable and irrational guide to truth. Kaya ang usual mong response to that is to point out na kami din naman gumagamit ng faith. And we'll even hear you say na it takes more faith to be an atheist. Don't do that. Pinoint out mo nga ang hypocrisy sa statement namin, pero para mo naman ding inamin na unreliable method nga ang faith by committing the ikaw din naman argument or mas kilala bilang tu quo qui o appeal to hypocrisy fallacy. And we're not actually being a hypocrite when we say your methods are inferior. When we say we have faith in science or we have faith in pilots to safely fly airplanes, ang ibig lang naman naming sabihin is we trust science and pilots kasi consistent sila in producing effective results and that my strong confidence is based on evidence that can be verified. So if ang definition ng faith mo is the same as how I just described it, then that means your faith in God is based on evidence that can be verified. And when I say evidence that can be verified, I'm talking about the quality of evidence na ka-level ng flight logs, lisensya ng piloto, complete maintenance logs ng eroplano, and many other evidences for someone to be convinced na magiging safe nga talaga siya to ride airplanes. And aside sa physical evidences na hindi naman natin hinihingi when we trust to ride airplanes, we actually have collective experience and knowledge that planes fly and we know they consistently work way above the rate of chance. So kung hindi mo naman pala kaya magbigay ng same level of evidence, same level of collective experience and knowledge for your faith in God, then we're not using the same definition of faith. Mistake number 3. You assume that we wouldn't want to change our minds.
What, if anything, would ever change your mind?
No one's ever going to convince me that the Word of God is...
A lot of theists will confidently say na nothing will ever change their minds in believing that the Word of God is true. This is highly problematic and I can't blame you if you have this very strong conviction na totoo talaga yung Diyos mo. What I have problems with is that you assume na we too wouldn't want to change our minds. Personally, since naging atheist ako, a big portion of my time was actually spent finding good arguments for God to force myself to believe again. I mean, what if I'm wrong, diba? Then I'd be spending my whole eternity in hell. Pero the more I get myself exposed to theistic arguments, the more I become convinced na I'm on the truth side so far. And I don't like being correct because alam kong hindi ako matalino and I always get things wrong. Okay, it's wrong to assume that we wouldn't want to change our minds because we do. This video is evidence itself na willing akong mag-change ng mind ko kasi I'm helping you to focus on the stronger arguments to convince us or prove us wrong and not the weak-ass arguments I've mentioned so far.
My brother Anakin! I loved you!
Mistake number 4. You insist on the idea that atheists believe there are no God or gods. As a theist dati, I thought na the worst thing that could happen to a person na nagsisimula ng mag-doubt sa faith nila is to conclude na there is no God. I considered it as the worst thing because I think one good reason to not believe in a God is the lack of evidence. So I thought, bakit bigla silang naniwala na walang Diyos? May evidence na ba sila to prove na wala? Akala ko ba basihan ng evidence to believe in something? As a theist dati, I thought that the most logical path for a person who is in doubt is to at least be a theist or an agnostic and never an atheist. Ang confusion kasi comes from the definition of the word atheist. You think atheism is a belief at nahihirapan kang intindihin kung ano ang non-belief, which is very understandable sa isang tao na naka-hardwired to believe in a God. Ito kasi yung main takeaway ng definition of the word atheist. Napakinggan namin yung arguments nyo, chinek yung set evidence na merong Diyos, pero hindi talaga siya kapani-paniwala for us. Therefore, hindi kami naniniwala na totoo yung claims mo for God's existence. Does that automatically mean na naniniwala ako na wala talagang Diyos? Hindi. Atheism is not a declaration or a belief na there are no God or gods. Kasi baka meron naman talagang Diyos o creator ng universe. God could be Morty from the IT department at aksidente lang niya tayong nailalang in a form of a computer simulation sa lab niya in his mom's basement. Or God could be Jessica and our whole universe, which she stored in a small jar, could just be her little science fair project where she got a D, now full of dust after being kept in the science classroom for many years. Na-confuse mo kasi yung atheism ko sa whole God concept. Sa God mo lang ako hindi naniniwala and will even take a step further to say na your God is fiction and can even argue as to how and why using evidence and reason. But the deistic God, yung general idea of a creator, I'm not so sure. I can't be sure that Morty or Jessica aren't real and will even say na it's unknowable kasi wala naman tayong holy books na pwede nating i-treat as claims of truth for their existence. We just have the idea of a universal creator at mahirap imbestigahan ang idea kung totoo ba siya o hindi if it remains just that. And finally, mistake number 5. You confuse atheism with science. Why do people who don't believe in God have to think about the same things about biology or cosmology? Karamihan sa atin hindi naniniwala kay Allah o Vishnu o Zeus. Lahat ba ng mga taong hindi naniniwala sa kanila share the same ideas about science? As an atheist, narinig ko lang naman ang claim na merong Diyos at na-assess ko lang naman na hindi very convincing yung mga said evidence for God, kaya di ako naniniwala. Ganoon lang po kasimple ang rason bakit atheist kami. We find your claims for God very unconvincing. Pero the moment you hear someone say na atheist sila, it suddenly becomes appropriate to ask all kinds of questions about science. Hindi po kami mga scientist at hindi po kami expert sa mga theories nila. If you have questions about the Big Bang or the theory of evolution, hindi po atheists ang best person to ask kasi naging unconvinced lang naman kami sa theistic claims mo. You claim na an invisible spirit being created the universe. The next logical step in the conversation is for you to demonstrate your claim, not for you to start demanding us to explain science just because we don't believe what you failed to prove. I hope na after watching this video, your conversations with an atheist will be less toxic and be more focused on topics you both think are important. Hopefully you enjoyed my list and just as hopefully you'll join me next time. Please like, comment, subscribe and share this video if you find it useful. Daghang salamat and see you in the next video.